Okay, I have converted the conversion, moving all the parts from my original skid steer 742 Kent engine to the Ford Fiesta 7880 1.6 liter engine. Another thing to note about these engines, that this block height is 8¼ inches versus the Ford Fiesta engine, which is 8½ inches. Things I had to do to the engine. When you change over the Bobcat water pump, you will have to drill a hole and tap for a new screw here. Also, in the timing chain cover, you will need, see, this is where the original hole for the Ford Fiesta chain cover is, but you're going to wind up having to drill a hole and tap a new screw to be able to move over the original Bobcat chain cover. Another thing that needed to be done was in the support bracket for the engine. Instead of having 4 screws, it's now going to have 2 screws. You will need to notch out the bracket that supports the engine so that you have access to the oil pressure switch. Another thing that's going to have to be done is that the Ford Fiesta engine has the dipstick tube in the front, but since we switched over the crankcase cover, see, now it bottoms out, so we're going to have to drill a hole in the back here, approximately somewhere in here. Drill a hole and move over the dipstick tube from the Bobcat engine. See, here's the dipstick tube. I'm going to take that off and relocate it to this engine, but I will have to drill a hole there to be able to accomplish that. Now keep in mind that these engines, major difference from the factory, the Bobcat engine was rated at 34 horsepower for the year and model for the 742 versus the Fiesta engine, which is rated at 88 horsepower. I figured that the only thing that I really did was I used the original carburetor from the Bobcat, and as you can see, it's a single barrel. So I am thinking that the horsepower is going to drop from 88. You should still be close to 60 horses. I can't see it losing 28 horses over the carburetor, but we'll see once we get it started. My next step is to finish rigging it up so that I can start it out of the machine, and before I go ahead and order, or before I I'm going to put in new piston rings and do a valve job on it and hone the cylinders on this engine. The other parts were new because I had already rebuilt my original Bobcat engine. When I changed the crankshaft over, I also changed over all the bearings. When you do this procedure of changing crankshafts and bearings, if yours is in pretty good shape, you need to remember to number everything. Your main journal bearings and your connecting rod bearings. Those, it's very important and critical that you number and put them right where they used to be. They have to be in the same exact place, otherwise you're going to bump into problems with binding and so on and so forth, unless you opt for buying new bearings and new connecting rod bearings. I didn't have to do that because when I rebuilt my engine originally, before I bumped into the problems from it freezing in the winter time, I had all those parts were all brand new. See, So you're gonna need to remember that everything must be switched over from one engine to the other. Oil pump, water pump, front chain, chain cover, water spout, head cover, valve head cover. The back seal is behind the flywheel. The back seal and bearings. The exhaust system. The intake manifold with the carburetor. The gasoline pump. And like I said, the ignition also has to be switched over because the ignition cap on the Fiesta is way higher and it just won't work here. So I put in my old Bobcat engine ignition, but I have a Petronix electronic ignition upgrade on it, and I converted it to electronic ignition. As you can see here, I have a resistor to step down the voltage and a new Excel coil. So the next video we should hopefully see this engine running.